Next on At Your Service, the important topic of healthy relationships. So stay tuned. On today's At Your Service, we will be addressing healthy relationships, and we have two special guests with us today, Miss Kristin Bowser and Miss Megan Earley. Welcome, ladies. If you would, tell me a little bit about your roles in Anne Arundel County Public Schools.
Sure. I work at Annapolis Middle School as a school counselor.
And I teach health at Annapolis High School.
Okay, great.
Thank you, and it's really important. I just want to emphasize our discussion and our conversation today about healthy relationships. And as a health educator, can you explain to the TV audience about the importance of healthy relationships, and at what level are students exposed to this type of skills and knowledge that they need about forming healthy relationships?
So they're exposed as early as the elementary level, and that's where counseling comes in and does those lessons. And then in the middle school health, this is in our curriculum, as well as high school health, which is a graduation requirement.
And I find that interesting because I work in the Office of School Counseling, as what Megan does. And Christy is a former school counselor, but
right.
at PPW, so that's pretty interesting to have such a mix of expertise in the area of relationships. At the middle school level, we know that there is a health curriculum, but I'm sure the school counseling office does provide support in working with students around relationships.
Oh, definitely. You know, students come to us for mediations at times, or they may be referred to us for mediation if they're having problems with their peers. Students like to come to the counseling office to talk about if they're having problems with a teacher or a parent or another adult in their life. So we're really there for them as that soundboard to help them solve their problems.
And at the high school level, are you finding this, after you teach a particular lesson on healthy relationships or forming appropriate boundaries, do you have a lot of students, do students come and reach out to you, not just the school counselors, but they ask questions and follow-ups after class?
Absolutely, and that's all about great teaching practices, having a great rapport with your students, getting to know them, and having those structures set up in place, knowing that they can't always talk to me or another adult in the building, that we're a great support staff. And then, of course, I'm going to use my counselors and my administration if there is an issue.
So one of the questions that I didn't have down on the piece of paper, but why are healthy relationships important? Why is that a skill? Why is that knowledge so important for students to be able to grasp and understand and apply to their life?
Well, we engage in relationships all day long because a relationship isn't just romantic. It could be professional, it could be personal, the family dynamic, peer-to-peer, and so communication is just a huge piece of that, how we communicate, our body language, our tone, and you know, how we're speaking to people. Are we respectful of people with different opinions? We may not agree with them, but that all plays a role in what a relationship is.
Yeah, I think what one person might think is healthy may be different than another person might think is healthy as well.
Right.
So what is a healthy relationship? I guess that's one of the big topics that is discussed at each level, right?
So healthy relationships are based on trust and mutual respect. There is a shared balance of power there. You know, there isn't jealousy. We don't want to get into that, of course. You feel appreciated. You feel equal. Equality is probably the biggest piece right there.
So when you're looking at younger children, elementary schools children, when we think about that developmental age, what are some things or some practices that parents would see either at home or in the classroom or in the hallways, even for middle school, because I find some of their behaviors, especially for the 6th graders to the 5th graders, you see some of those age development characteristics. What would parents look for if you're wanting to help form better relationships? What would those things look like?
I think it depends on your child and what your child is experiencing. I know for children that might have problems making friends, you might want to help them by having them join clubs or groups or athletic teams, you know, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. There are also extracurricular activities at a lot of our elementary schools for them to join. I think that's a big help for that first step, is making friends. And then in the middle school level, we want to make sure that friendships aren't taking over. We want to always make sure, we always teach our children to have a balance. So they want to have a balance with family, friendships, school, being healthy, being involved in extra activities, and doing things for themselves as well. So it's all about keeping that balance.
And setting clear boundaries, I think, just expanding upon that. Having clear boundaries, accepting each other, and being respectful. What does that really mean to be respectful? It doesn't mean we always agree, but we're respectful and we're kind.
So, and part of the verbal communication is to be able to problem solve without being frustrated, even if somebody has a difference, and to be able to do that at such a young age, and to give them the steps to be able to verbalize their feelings without acting out in emotion.
Right.
And that it can be a little bit challenging at times. What about, I was thinking about technology, and I was thinking about the computer and the phone. That sometimes can really throw a wrench into developing those positive communication skills. What are some, ideas that you would have for students or parents around the idea of communicating just solely through technology? Because I'm not sure how healthy that can be at times.
So we're always going to encourage face-to-face, especially if it's a heavier topic, something that you're uncomfortable with. For that reason, because body language, our tone, our facial expression, that all plays a role into communication. But if you're limited to the technology, that's where we want to focus on our I statements, not our you statements, being assertive, very direct, clear, very concrete, because things are kind of misunderstood sometimes via text or whatever outlet we're using to communicate via technology.
I also think it's important for parents to set limits with technology, especially based on age level. You want more of a limit for the younger, a little bit less limits for the older. It's okay to set that time limit. It's okay to have the phone go in the basket during dinner time or during homework time, especially at bedtime. Too much screen time is very unhealthy for students, and there's a lot of research out that it's even unhealthy for their brain. So we want to make sure that those limits are set. We teach an acronym at our school, and many other schools I think teach this too. It's the THINK strategy, where it's an acronym that stands for something. Is what I'm texting, saying, or posting, is it thoughtful? Is it kind? Is it helpful? I'm not sure the order of it right now on TV, but it's a little strategy that they stop and think before they post something. So it really, I think, helps people sometimes say, you know what, that isn't too kind, I'm not going to post it, it's not needed.
And that's a great idea, because I know so many times people will start texting, they'll capitalizing things, next thing you know, the kids are in fights because they take it completely out of context.
Misunderstood. So that's really important to go back to our feelings and our emotions. What are we actually feeling? What are we trying to convey? What emotions? And maybe if we're really passionate about something, or frustrated or angry, maybe that's when we need to use some of our strategies and take a couple deep breaths. Maybe not respond for a few minutes, because you might be a little bit too passionate and it could be misunderstood.
Right.
Definitely. I see that many times, not just with the the texting but email. And so, and then you'll see it, people post it on Facebook, and then they'll, so I feel like this generation, and even just, not just students, but we really need to be mindful, because things can be interpreted, and then their feelings could be hurt. But what we were thinking of and when I was thinking about healthy relationships and forming it, it's so important for parents to just really work with their student and work with their child to be aware. To me, it seems like there's a lack of awareness of what is happening in that technology world, that they might not even know that their child is engaging in an unhealthy relationship. Some of the information that I received, we're going to talk a little bit later about domestic or dating violence. But before that, I just think with the younger students, there's the terminology frenemies. Have you heard of that? And what does that constitute? What does that really mean for parents that may not have heard of that before?
So, there's that whole mean girl phenomena, or bullying is a hot topic in our schools and in our neighborhoods. So students act like friends and then they do mean things to them and they're not kind.
Right.
So sometimes it's confusing for people because they think that that's their friend, but then they are hurt by them. So you know, there can be a lot of ramifications.
Is that something you see at the high school level?
Yeah, so we just want to teach our students to, or encourage them just to be thoughtful in what they're telling their peers, their friends, you know, with self-disclosure. How much do we want to tell them? Of course, if we're in need, we encourage that, but do you really know your peer? How long have you known them? Can you really trust them? And where are they going with this information? And, you know, are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution? Are you repeating something that's not true or not kind about someone? Because that could hurt their feelings. And so just being really reflective of what is your role in this?
Do you notice that today's youth has such a lack of filter because of the social media that sometimes it's not that they bring it on, but they open that gate to that exposure because everything is, they just share everything. Even then they're like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have done that. But then they're out, the word's out. And then kids will take it and not think about it and just keep posting it, and that more and more students will weigh in on that. Do you see the consequences? Do you have students that come to you about, oh, I shouldn't have done that, and what are the ramifications, and how can I correct that?
Sometimes, I suppose. I mean, there's less of that in high school, I think. We're so focusing on maybe some images that you might put out there. They're permanently out there even if you think you've deleted them, and colleges could be looking at those. Would you want your parents to see that one day, your future employer? So to really just look outside the box, even though you think that it's private, it's just intended for your audience, your 6, 10 friends, whatever is on your phone. It really is out there.
Now, is this something that you're actually talking to the kids about and raising their awareness at the elementary school level, at the middle school level?
Yes.
Is there something that's going home to the parents as well, and how they can be educated about that and how to help their children?
Sometimes we have parent nights and about this topic. So yeah, different schools have them. You know, have a variety of topics where they do parent nights, but typically one on the internet and, you know, safety for your child is definitely.
Because like you were saying, developmentally, how you would teach, you know, a little tiny first grader, second grader up to 5th grade versus an 8th grader would be totally different. And then we'll talk about the high school, which is a whole other beast.
And their whole exposure to technology, because a second grader maybe shouldn't have access to data and everything that's just available with just, you know, a finger or two, click away.
And then what they're exposed to could be very unhealthy. It could reinforce, even though their home is perfectly, you know, healthy, but what they go online and see could be very unhealthy. So it's amazing what is there already, and it, you know, it sets those the exposure to that, I think, is, you know, it can be very damaging to certain students, or almost traumatizing to students. They haven't seen that before.
And they're always one step ahead of us. You know, they know they know all the latest apps that they can go on. Or of course, it used to be where we teach parents the different acronyms that students would type when, you know, with instant messaging, or when you look behind your child over their shoulder at the computer, or maybe on their phone, or understanding those different acronyms. Now it's more understanding that your child may have a Finstagram instead of an Instagram, a fake Instagram with a different name. So you thought you were friends with your child on their social media, but now they have this other one that they're hiding, where you know, they could have some unhealthy relationships going on there, or some unhealthy things going on. So it's always trying to keep up with them, and you know, and knowing all the latest out there.
Because the parents are now on social media, and the children, our students, are aware of that. So they are not posting on Facebook, and even Twitter's becoming less and less. You know, so it's what's the new app, and you know, Snapchat's one of them, but of course they can decide what the audience is going to be. So
it's a slippery slope.
It is. It's just important to have those check-ins with your child.
Definitely. So we will be back in a few minutes. Stay tuned.
Fly The new kindergarten, first, and second grade curriculums are designed to engage students in a variety of learning opportunities that involve collaboration, conversation, and creativity. One learning block that is devoted to movement and healthy minds and bodies supports a cooperative classroom and a feeling of connectedness. In Move, 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 Healthy Minds and Bodies, activities support oral language development and prepare the brain for new information. The use of repetition and movement offers an opportunity to review content across various learning blocks. The positive effects of physical activity on the young brain provides a focus and a readiness to learn.
Ready?
Ask your child how Move, Move, Move helped them learn today.
Run! Excellent, boys and girls.
Welcome back. We're having a discussion about healthy relationships. And ladies, thank you. I would like to ask a question about, do healthy friendships and dating relationships look alike? Do they have similar characteristics?
Absolutely. Those components we talked about earlier, having respect for each other, the healthy communication. I guess really the difference would be then if you start to develop feelings and emotions for the person, but they should look very similar.
Mm-hmm. You find that at the middle school as well when you're working with students?
Oh, yes. I mean, there's definitely friendships, and then there's definitely when more of emotion or romantic inclination, happens.
And so when things go south or go negative,
Mm-hmm.
are they also similar characteristics of negative relationships, maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. They could be, that disrespect piece, is there jealousy, is there an imbalance of power, isolation, like you should hang out with me and not those friends, or you should hang out with me and not your family, and that could be for friends or even romantic. But kind of those are the things that we're worried about, and we want our students to recognize those warning signs.
So let me follow up a little bit. You talked about disrespect. Okay, so that can be a very general, broad term.
Right.
So if I have students and parents watching this program today, what does that mean? Because I know that that can be a whole spectrum of different actions and behaviors that some people be like, oh, that's not really disrespect. So from an elementary point of view, if I had an elementary student watching this show or a parent of an elementary school student and they're in a relationship, a friendship relationship, what would that look like? What were some common things that you would think with a younger child that might look like in a peer relationship?
I think exclusion from the group. So maybe the child is told, you're not allowed to sit next to me at my lunch table today. You're not allowed to sit at our lunch table. So sometimes exclusion with the little ones, saying mean words to them, possibly getting physical with them.
Pushing them.
Yep, pushing, shoving on the playground, in line when you're lining up, things like that. Can you think of anything else for elementary?
It's just so different from the high school to the elementary levels.
It's true.
To what we see, yeah.
Well, I often see with the elementary school kids too, when they tend to pretend to be their friend, but not really.
Yeah.
It's almost like using them a little bit. When they're convenient, they're
What's
their
the
friend,
purpose? Yeah.
but not always.
Yeah.
And they don't really see it. So in that sense,
It's only for their benefit at times.
So if a parent sees that, and they see it repeatedly, then they can say, oh, they're not necessarily being a real friend.
And I think it's also healthy to teach children that these may be your acquaintances or your classmates, but they're not your friend.
Right.
And
Good
there's
point.
a difference between the two.
That is true. That's true. It's not like they have 500 friends on Facebook.
Yeah.
It is, because my child would ask me, how can my older brother have all these friends? And I'm like, they're not really all friends. They're just acquaintances. So
And it's okay to have
Right.
2 friends, 1 friend, 3 friends.
Right.
And then that's a good conversation, it's a good dialogue to have with your children to bring it up. What is a real friend? 2 or 3.
And how do real friends treat each other?
Right.
and that trust factor. At the middle school, what would you see?
What do we,
About,
how do they
you know-
treat each other? For disrespect, same kind of things, excluding, talking about the person to another person. A lot of that happens, like he said, she said things. I hear a lot from parents sometimes where they don't like when the child is called too much by someone or texted. Like a mom might say, I'm having a little bit of a problem. with Susie, because Jenny constantly texts her all day, all night, and it's getting to be a little bit too much. Do you have any, suggestions, or do you see this with other children? So that's that imbalance a little bit,
Right.
or the boundaries that aren't set, or some children don't have as good of boundaries as other children, so they need to be taught those a little bit more. But yeah, similar things to elementary though. Sometimes physical, sometimes name calling, being mean, and the exclusion.
Okay. At the high school, you're finding similar?
Yeah, I guess what's the purpose behind it? Are we trying to hurt somebody? Exclusion for sure, the name calling, trying to embarrass or humiliate someone, so just really trying to be hurtful, but trying to take a stand of, I want to hurt you and I'm better than you. So that can be difficult.
Gossip.
Criticizing, maybe they're a little bit jealous and they're not dealing with that appropriately, and so they're just really trying to put this other person down and embarrass them because they have the means to do so with technology. It's just so easy now.
Talk to me a little bit at the high school level about that use of the phone, especially with relationships, not just friendships, that we see that exclusionary piece of it, but a lot with the dating relationships. It's kind of like you know where that person is 24/7. It's a little concerning.
It is a little concerning, and sometimes our students are even a little bit desensitized to that. Some students might think that it's totally acceptable and appropriate for their partner or a friend to repeatedly text them or message them, 20 text messages in a 3-minute period, because that shows that they care. But that can be a concern, if you're not checking in, it doesn't mean something's wrong with you. Maybe you're just speaking with your parents, or you're staying after and talking to a teacher.
Right.
But if it gets, where are you? What are you doing? And
Who are you with?
Yes, that can be cause for concern. Is that trust missing there? That's a little bit controlling, and that's actually one of the early warning signs for an unhealthy relationship, specifically dating, and which potentially could lead to dating violence. So we want our students to be aware of that. That's typically how it starts out.
What are some other warning signs now we're on that topic?
Back with isolation, that's a big one. If you really cared about me, you'd be hanging out with me right now, and I love you so much, don't you want to be with me? That's a big one. Manipulation, and that just comes back to that imbalance of power. And so you have to speak to your partner from those very early stages, even in the friendship stage, of setting your boundaries and what's acceptable to you and what's not acceptable to you. And just to reiterate those conversations, your partner should make you feel like a better person.
Right.
They should compliment you in a way that you're a better person. And if that's not happening, you need to advocate for yourself and have that confidence and say, this is unacceptable to me.
And so let's say you're a high school student, middle school student watching this program, you're a parent watching this program, and you have some concerns. You're like, oh my gosh, my child has, either they're the one texting a particular person all the time, or they're receiving the text.
Yeah.
What's some guidance for them? How should they proceed?
Well, I think reaching out to your school for help is a great way to start, whether it's an administrator or a teacher that you trust, or your school counselor or PPW. These are all people that can get you in the right direction. On the back of the student ID cards that all secondary students receive, 6th through 12th grade, there are 3 phone numbers on the back. So one is an anonymous tip line. So if you have a concern about another child and you want to report that, it's completely anonymous. One is a counselor line that students can call and get advice from a certified counselor.
Correct.
And the other one is a crisis response line. So family members, if there's someone in crisis in your home or where you are, you can call and get people in the county to come help you right at that moment. So we teach that to our students at Annapolis Middle, what those numbers are on the back, and hope that they have an easy access to it since it's on their ID card. And they always know where they are.
Right.
What are some other resources that you use?
I think the school county website is easily accessible. You can find a ton of information on there. Of course, there's the parent-teacher handbook. We give our students in health specifically, we give them a list of local and national resources. One of the ones that we use when we speak of unhealthy relationships is the One Love My Plan app, which you can get for free on your phone. And maybe you're concerned about one of your friends or even your own relationship, a family member, and you can just kind of put in you answer a few questions. Is this a unhealthy relationship? Is it healthy? It kind of gives you a number and a score, I should say, a score for that relationship. Like, yes, you're at risk. Yes, you need to speak up. This is not safe. And then who can you contact in your local community? And of course, we always encourage, talk to an adult at your school. There's always an adult that you can speak to.
So we have about 4 minutes, and you brought up the One Love program.
Yes, yes.
So can you describe a little bit to the audience about the One Love program and how it originated at Annapolis High School?
So it's a new resource available to high school students in health. It went through this formal approval process, and that's anything in health related. It goes through this approval process. It's been widely received. Great feedback from parents, from students, and myself and Nadine Hendler from Severna Park are going to be teaching it this year. And it's a 40-minute film that depicts a couple in an unhealthy relationship. The students then have a discussion afterwards, and we're looking for those warning signs, those trigger points. When could that friend have intervened? What could they have done in that situation? And this was all made available to us thanks to the Baltimore Ravens providing the One Love Foundation with a nice grant. So we're very fortunate to have this program at our school.
So is it going to be implemented in the health class, or is it going to be after school? Is there a parent component?
Absolutely. So there is a parent component that will be coming next year. I think that we're going to try it out at my school on how to specifically speak to your child about this topic. And then teachers that are trained in the county, health teachers, can speak to various sports teams if they want. But since we already have these lessons and these standards in our health curriculum, it was just a nice resource to plug in and to further that dialect, that conversation.
What kind of feedback? I know that you did a pilot viewing with some students and parents at your particular high school.
Yes.
And what was the response that you
It was
received so
overwhelming. They're like, we absolutely need to see this. Some were encouraging middle school, but we're like, whoa, no, let's do high school with our 15 and 16-year-olds. That's typically our 10th grade population. Right. The parents were wonderful. We had someone from the state's attorney's office present. My amazing principal, Ms. Uchidum, was there, and she's like, yes, we have to have this at our school because we want our kids to recognize, to intervene, and prevent, and to have those courageous conversations.
So that's what it's all about, is empowering students to help themselves and others?
Absolutely. Yep.
And I think the whole idea of safety. Keeping our kids safe and providing them the skills and the tools to help them
themselves
and to not get so deep entrenched in an unhealthy relationship.
That's so important.
It really is.
Yeah, to help themselves and I guess within their own family as well.
So when I'm looking at, I just have just another minute, but I do, as parents are listening to this and they have an elementary or middle school student, would they be able to participate in the parent presentations? Or is that by cluster, or are we thinking we just want to grow that through each cluster?
So this particular resource escalation would not be available to the elementary or middle school students.
Correct.
The parents, perhaps, that might be something where we may make that available to them, but this is definitely something that you're going to be getting in high school only health education curriculum. So we're not going to, this specific resource. The topics, of course, are covered in middle school and in elementary, but this particular resource we're keeping at the high school level, just because it is so real world.
It is very powerful.
It's very powerful.
Well, I just wanted to thank you very much for attending
Well, thank you for
our
having us.
session today on healthy relationships.
Yeah, it's been great.
Thank you for watching At Your Service. See you next time.